So, for this part, what we're going to do here is we're going to trim this decal a little bit at the top. And I brought everything I need here. And we're also going to take and trim this rough edge off of here where it's all kind of beat up. We're going to peel that off. So what we got here going here is the straight edge. So we can just cut away the affected parts. And I brought everything with me I think I might possibly need. So we're going to just try to cut the boo-boos away. If my straight edge will stop moving. Okay, so I have an X-Acto knife here, and all I'm doing is cutting the damaged edge off of this to square this up. And I have some film here as well. Now that's all been cut, so I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and get underneath the edge here, if I can do so, and get it peeling off. It's so brittle, I think it's going to be kind of a bear, but it's time consuming and ridiculously stupid. If it was me, I would have just taken and blown this thing away, but the customer wants me to leave this decal because it has this date code on it and some historic significance, and I guess my thumbnail works better than anything. So just kind of recut this edge just slightly. I probably could freehand this thing a hell of a lot better than doing it the way I'm doing it. But the goal here is to clean this up and get rid of this nasty edge. Then we're going to take a piece of clear vinyl and we're going to put that over the top of this. Oh my God, that's brittle. There we go. Now another bad thing about all this is there's a lot of rust that's going on here too that is going to be potentially problematic. So that's something we have to be mindful of. And the reason for putting the clear on it is to protect it so that when I put tape across this, now this decal has a crack in it, so that's going to be seen. There's nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. Let's see, we're just going to run this right along this edge just like this. That seems to be working really well. Is to trim this back and then get all this residue off of here. And so the long-term goal here is to clean this all up, make it all pretty, and with nice edges as best as we can, and then put some clear vinyl on it. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever worked with vinyl, but I'm sure just about everybody has messed around with stickers and decals and all that happy stuff. So what this stuff looks like is this is clear vinyl. This is UV protectant clear vinyl. It's kind of a bear to get the backing off of it. But when you put this on here, you're going to put fingerprints in it. I don't care who you are, you're going to put fingerprints in it. So you're going to want to get this thing lined up and then get it down. And I'll show you the process we're going to go through here. We're kind of done with that. And then I got a rag here, and I actually have an applicator that I use for all my vinyl work, and I'm going to come down through the middle of it here and then off the edge. But we have a radius, and then we got the flats. So we're going to, and then I will go back and I will cut all the corners off of this, and you'll see me do all that. So I'm going to try to get this edge peeled up, which again is really a pain in the butt to get started. You get the backing off this. But any vinyl guy knows that that's really hard to do this way. There's other ways of doing this, by the way. And that would be to have some kind of a pre-mask on this side, that's sticky pre-mask, and put this on the pre-mask and then put this on. But because of the way this is being done, and the goal here, we got to do it a little bit different. So also, once you get this separated, if I ever get this frickin' separated, oh my god, this is so irritating. Maybe I need better lighting. Maybe I need better eyes. I'm not sure. Come on. Well, for the love of God. Alright, I'm going to go and put you on hold for a second while I go get really angry and say bad words. Ugh. I need better lighting. Okay, I'm back. That took a minute. And then I had to literally go into the sunlight because I couldn't see what the hell I was doing. So what I'm going to do here is now I'm peeling back this mask. Okay, and we're going to get right out to the edge here. And we're going to hold it up this way so that if it starts to roll or curl in any way, shape, or form, it's going downhill. Then I'm going to take it in my other hand, if my other hand will cooperate. There we go. Alright, so now we've got this clear piece, right? So now we've got to really get scientific, and we've got to get right up to that edge, because I have enough material here that I could just overlap it too, for that matter, and I may just do that. But I thought I could take care of one edge to start with, and have it be right. And that is going to be that edge. And because of my wonderful eyesight, I have to be extremely careful. As you can see, it tried to just go right on down there and get all stupid. Okay, so I can already see that this is going to want to be a bear cat here. So I'm going to take and pull it down in the middle. And where did I put my tool? There it is. Very carefully work it down in the center. And once it works down in the center, get my fingers out of there. And then I'm going to slowly work it back this way. Now that's going to create a problem. Okay, so now I am stretching on this somewhat. And if you put a lot of pressure on here, you're going to scratch the hell out of this vinyl. And then it's going to look like crap. Okay, there's that side of this. Alright. Now this side, which it wants to stick to that bare metal in the worst way, I'm going to start working this down. There's a little bubble in there for some reason. So we'll just pull him back and burp him out of there very carefully so we don't lose anything. And you can also use a heat gun, which is a handy tool. You see I'm using my thumb for a lot of this. Your hands do hand things. if you get a bad spot, you know, and you got to really roll that, you're going to have to use a heat gun. There's just no way around it. Now, this is completely protected from UV. It won't fade anymore, and it will provide a good film. So the next part of this is I'll be cutting off the residue, and I will be sanding right up to this edge. And this edge is kind of rough, so I may, when this gets taped off, I'll use like 3M fine line tape, and I'll put all the way around the border, and so that the paint won't, it'll, you know, because it'll be sanded bare metal right up to the edge. And this will get taped off. You can see there's areas in here that there's just so many cracks in this decal, the original decal. It just is what it is. Not going to be any better. But the sun won't fade it, and it will live as long as it's going to live. Probably outlive the rest of the trailer, more than likely. You see me running my thumb over it. I'm just, if I feel any kind of little bubble or crease, I'm working all that stuff out with my hand versus the heat gun, because I really don't want to use the heat gun. But if you've ever watched guys that do this, put a wrap on a car, they'll use heat guns, multiple hands and heat guns, and stretch it around curves and everything else. So there is all that too. So the next part of this whole thing is I'm going to freehand this, at least the downstrokes. I'll go right up to that edge of the old decal. I used to do a lot of pinstriping, so that's kind of why I'm fairly handy at this. And then pull off the extra. Yeah, I have a strange skill set. Very versatile. I had to learn to do all this stuff all by myself. I did have a few people along the way that gave me some pointers, and that was extremely helpful as well. You gotta learn from people, man. I mean, hopefully you guys have got some takeaway on this too, and learned a little from what I do too. This one here's got this nasty rust down here, and that's going to be very problematic going to even cut this, because I've got to get around the rust, and it's going to want to try to draw the blade into the rust because that's a low spot. And we'll just keep going here very carefully. Kind of using the offset of the decal to put the blade into. There. And as soon as I find the leftover decal, I'll peel it off. There we go. Boy, that thing really wanted to stick in there. That rusty spot. There we go. Well, it's taking a little paint right with it. Less paint I have to sand. And there you have it. So, that's how you preserve an old decal with clear vinyl. Now this will, like I said, this will stay stuck on here as long as this goes. There's multiple spots on here that are got little air holes in them and are missing chunks, you know, from the past, and there's nothing you can really do about that. But the main reason I did this is so when I put tape across this, when this whole thing gets sandblasted, that when I pull the tape off, it doesn't take the decal off, because that happens. And so that's just saying, that's bad. So that's the end of this little tutorial. And I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't take too awful long. So, last I left off, we had putting a clear on this to protect it. And the next thing I'm going to do here, and you already see I started on, is I'm actually going to draw a nice little thumbnail line here, down here. And you can see I taped this off. And there's a reason that I did so, is because now I want to sand up to the edge of the clear material here. Get my X-Acto knife to do what X-Acto knives are supposed to do, cut things, other than my fingers. I hate when that happens. Anyway, so I did a border tape edge. Fighting tape. You know, this doesn't go this hard if I don't want to film it. I can rip through this stuff so quick and easy. But if I'm filming, I swear, if it can go wrong, it goes wrong. And there's that. Now let's see if we can peel it up this way and have it actually all come off. You know? Not gonna get lucky. Alright, so now that we did all that, what I'm going to show you here is the process that I go through when I gotta save something like this, so you can learn how to do this too. It's pretty simple. I'm going to take 80 grit, and I'm going to go right up to that edge, and I'm going to sand that edge really good and get all of the bad paint or rust dealt with right on that edge. And that way it's feathered, and I'll actually put some primer on this before this is all said and done, and I'll show you what I use for quick primer, which works really good. It's a product made by Quicksilver. It has rust inhibitive stuff in it, so it really does a great job. The idea here is to get rid of this rust scale that's going on here, and you can do that pretty easily just by hand sanding that material back and just take it right straight to bare metal. And of course, now that I've got that tape on there, it's going to protect that decal even more, but I still will run right along that edge. By the way, sorry about the dirty coat, but it's my farm coat. It sees a lot of abuse. Like about most of my body, it sees a lot of abuse. Poor damn thing. So, we're going to be sandblasting most of all this, and this will all get, even though it gets sandblasted, it's still going to get DA'd. So, because there's porosity, when you sandblast something, there's a lot of porosity into the metal, and when you got kind of a showpiece like this, I DA it with 80 grit before I put my epoxy primer on it, and it smooths it off really nice. And you don't, the epoxy primer will sink into the pits made by the sandblasting, so you have to get rid of those pits. And so that's the purpose behind all that. I'm going to sit down here because that way I can control things better. And as I talked about, this rust on the bottom down here was really bad, and that is the other reason I'm doing this right now, is to get rid of all that rust, get something on it so we can go back to that, as my neighbor calls it, arrested state of decay. And I don't mind painting over some of this. No, I just can't paint over rust. That's a major no-no. So especially when I'm restoring for somebody, if I paint it over the rusty spot on their car, it'll come back to haunt me. And I don't want that. I could use a DA, I suppose, and do it that way, but I like to control better. That's why I want to do it by hand. Once this is feathered back, this won't be such a big deal. It's the only spot that doesn't have rust. I know 80 grit sand scratches seems like a lot, and I know there's some guys that are going to be freaking out until I'm like, oh, you got to do it better than that. Well, let's remember, this is a boat trailer. It's not a show car. And when you see this thing when it's done, you're going to not be able to know the difference. Whether a show car, or boat trailer, or what have you, because it will look beautiful. I just want to tape off a bigger area when it gets sandblasted, because I want to tape it off above and below this thing so the sandblaster dude don't get carried away and do something really stupid and ruin this decal. This will have masking tape on it, it will have duct tape on it, it will be very protected. The guy I'm getting to do my blasting, he's been doing it forever. Todd's really good at it. He's got some good people. So he does really good work, and he doesn't ruin things. You tell him you got to save something, he'll make sure it gets saved. Now, just because I'm putting primer on this little here spot too, I will sand this again. Probably sand most of the primer off. It's just to protect it for now and stop any future rust from forming. I know it's always boring when you're watching people sand something, so, but just part of the process. A lot more fun to watch when you're using a DA. And I suggest that if you're going to do this, you should probably clean it or something. But for the purpose that I'm going to do today, I'm just going to wipe any paint dust off because it's going to get redone anyway. Any excessive paint dust. And I'm going to show you, this is the product that I use. It's a light gray primer by Quicksilver. It's designed for use on aluminum. It works on steel just equally as well. It does take a long time to dry. And, well, it goes dust free pretty fast, but let's say it takes a long time to cure. So that's a good thing. And you want to go on with your first coat. Go on really, especially with this stuff, just go on really light. Don't try to cover it all in one coat. It's going to be transparent, so leave it that way. Let it flash, and as soon as it flashes, come back on it with a second coat and you're done. And I actually use this as a sealer. When I got to do a repaint on a Mercury outboard, I'll use this product as a sealer. And so I'll sand it all, and then put Mercury, well, if it's a prop, I'll do prop black, if it's, which is a satin black. By the way, that's the best satin black I've ever bought. And we use it on tons of stuff. We buy it by the case. Bantam Black is the top coat that I use on a budget Mercury build. So if somebody's really doesn't have a lot of money to spend for paint, I'll do that way. Generally, we don't do it that way. On the second coat, I'm going a little heavier on this because it's only going to get 2 coats, and that's that. So, and then as soon as this dries, I'll pull the tape off, move on to the next thing. Which, the next thing is going to be finishing up the fender and axle work. So we're continuing on with the fabrication on the moving the fenders out so they fit the tires properly, and so everybody's centered and all that stuff in the wheel well and all that. Ran into a couple of things of interest. For one, and Tony wanted a step pad, so I'll explain that in a minute. But what I ran into was I ended up having to washer shim to get the fender to not hit. Well, then I found out that this fender is bent back here, and I absolutely detest these brackets. And these brackets are a cold rivet, actually hot rivet actually is what I guess they would be called. They put in hot and they're pressed, and so the bracket is able to move slightly, but I don't like it. I'm going to clean the inside of these fenders and weld these brackets solid, and I may offset bend the bracket that you really can't see. There you can see part of it, but anyway, I may bend that out and then back, so 2 different bends where it'll offset, and so I don't need to use the washer for a shim. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do that, but it's a pretty simple process. You got to do it in 2 different processes. You heat it once and bend it, and then let it cool, and it sticks out and looks weird, and then you heat it in a different spot and bend it back the other way, and then it does its thing. Now, the other thing I'm going to point out is that he didn't want people stepping on his fender to get in the boat, so because it's going to be custom painted, so he wanted me to make a step pad for it, and nothing extremely fancy. So I happen to have some of this wood laying around, or composite board is what it is, so it won't rot. It's nice composite board. It's got a nice wood grain on it. So I had some of that laying around from another job. Believe it or not, a guy actually put this on his seat because someone told him that his aluminum, light colored aluminum seats were going to be so hot he couldn't sit on them, so he glued boards to them. PL200 glued these boards all the way across his Lumicraft seats, and when he brought it to me to restore, he was so proud of what he did. And I said, that's like aluminum color, and that's going to reflect light a lot more than that, so you want to talk about burning your booty. So I got him to strip all that off, and I took all that off when I restored his boat, and we acid stripped that one too and put a new transom in it. God, it was gorgeous. He was just tickled. He even took it back to the original owner so they could see what he did. So what this is going to do when this is all said and done here, pardon me, I'm going to get this kind of sort of centered. So this is going to stick out just slightly more than the fender, not by much. It's going to be pretty damn close. Haven't decided its final resting place, but something like that. Totally in line with the fender, but sticking out enough where this is where you're going to put your foot. And anybody with a foot, you know, you can put your foot there. So that's how that's going to go at some point. Now, I have one more part I have to make because this has to get bolted on, right? So I'm going to make this is 7 inches long and about 6.5 wide, so I'm going to make a 4x6 square piece of 1/8 inch, and that will be welded to this piece. Now, another thing I noticed too when I went to tighten this stuff up is that this tube in here, move this out of the way for now, this tube in here was starting to crush. Also, I'm going to put this bolt, I'm allowing a little bit of room for paint, so I don't scratch the paint putting the bolt back in, but I'm leaving this bolt so that this head of this bolt, you don't need a wrench. It's going to use this piece to hold it in place when you go to tighten it. So, simplicity. But it was crushing this tube. So, out of a piece of 3/8 pipe, I cut a shim. And the shim will basically go inside here, like so. And just kind of generalize it here. Sorry. Anyway, it's going to go in there like so, so that when the bolt tightens down, it won't crush the tube. And I'm doing that in the front, up there. Whoops. I'm doing it up there with that one, and I'm doing it back here with this one. And then this one's just basically, I won't tighten it as much. And that's the back fender mount anyway. So the main, holding this, the axle rides on this thing here. Okay, this plate here. That's where the spring purchase is, and that's where it all handles. So I just wanted to take 5 minutes here to explain where I was going with this thing and what I've designed, and it's going to look really cool when it's all said and done. You get that put back in there. I guess I got it centered if I'm going to balance it. Okay, so it'll look like that, and the fender will be blue. And we talked about the bracket being white like the trailer, but I think I'm going to paint it blue so it matches. So that's how that's going to go. That'll be a complete weldment, so it'll be a bolt-on goodie. Everything bolts together. Once it's all painted, bolt it together and go. And the other side, of course, has nothing done to it. And you can see how crushed that fender is and how offset it is and tipped upward, and it's just gross. If you're building a show pony, you got to get things right. And I'm a minute over where I wanted to be. Okay, I'll show you more when I get this thing all put together. Yeah, well, actually, I do have something I want to show you over here. If I can get past my torch. All right. That's Barney the Iron Dinosaur. Tonnage. You don't pick that. Yeah, you need a forklift to pick it up. It's that heavy. I use that for aluminum welding, and I'll change the spool over if I have to do overhead welding, like in high places, which I used to do a lot of that. Okay, so going forward, so what I did with the shim, to make the shim stock, is I took a piece of 3/8 pipe and I cut it off, but I'm going to show you there's a little flaw, and that is where the pipe was welded and joined. Okay, so you got to take a die grinder and get inside there and take care of that and get it gone on the inside so it's not there, so this slides nicely down on the bolt. Then this slides nicely into here, like so. Okay, now when I get this all said and done and get the bolt holes drilled where I want them and get those on the bolt holes and kind of snug things up, I'm going to tack weld these in place so they're not going to be moving around, and even if you took it apart, it's not going to fall apart. But when you tighten it up, it's going to crush this in place, so it really isn't going to go anywhere. So just wanted to show you that little trick to support the tube so you don't crush your tube. And the bad thing is, if you crush your tube, you're going to be continuously tightening up your bolts because they're going to get loose. And when it's the bolts that hold the axle in the trailer, that's not something you want to get loose. This is the other piece for the pad. So the pads are going to get plasma cutted next, and that's my plasma cutter. And it's dirty and messy because that's just its thing. So all the pieces are made. This is actually this long piece for the other axle. So, and this is the short piece for the other axle, or other side of the axle, I should say. So I wanted to show you how to make these quick shims so you don't crush your tubes. All right, I'll be back when I get more assembled and welded in place, and you can see what I'm up to there. So I'm going to run a couple-minute update here on how this turned out. That's the step pad. It sticks out 1/4 of an inch more than the fender. and exactly what I wanted. So, you know, in case there's any boat overlap, there's still room to get a toe hold in here and put your hoof on there. These will have 2 stainless carriage heads holding that board on. So I was going to go for 4, but I thought, yeah, well, 2 is going to be adequate for what we're doing here. I haven't got to the fender yet. I'll be getting to that shortly. I wanted to figure out everything and make all my parts, because I ended up having to make a bunch of parts and make a bunch more parts because early design flaws. We'll just call it that. Anyway, so this metal plate that's underneath here goes on there, and I don't know if you can see the welds on there, but I mean, other than that slobber, he'll be gone in the final sand. But focus, jeez. Anyway, so that's the kind of welds I lay down. Anyway, I don't know if you can see that, but that's really a nice bead all the way to the bottom. And this one here is basically a half weld. Just goes to there, and then when I get done, I will flip this over and do the same on the bottom, and I will seal this whole tube off like I did the top. So it'll be welded all the way around except for where the bolt head is, and that will be adequate. More than adequate, actually. Well, that's a better shot of my weld. Anyway, this metal plate will be welded also, probably on this lip. Well, I don't even think I'm going to do the lip. I'm just going to run like a stitch bead, like, you know, like zip, stop, and then zip or something, you know, like part of this and part of this. Not going to run the full weld all the way across, and the reason why is because you can warp this piece pretty quickly. So it doesn't need that much anyway. A 1-inch weld here and a 1-inch weld here, more than adequate, because you got it on both sides. So remember that this is just going to get down pressure on it from someone stepping on it. So it wouldn't take much. Actually, it could probably just weld it across the end and it'd be good enough. So there is that as well. So I just don't want it to move or whatever. I mean, if you get somebody really heavy, which is, you know, Tony is a big boy, but he ain't that big. So he ain't gonna hurt this. So if he does, he's going to diet. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about this right now. Just kind of give you an idea where it's at this mere moment. Had to make a lot of parts. And of course, you make for one side, you make for the other side, so it goes together mucho quicker. But drilling holes in this frame, that sucks. That takes a long time. And this is some pretty hard steel, so it doesn't like to be drilled. Anyway, just a quick update to be put in with the rest of this. But this will change very quickly. The next time you see it, there'll be even more changes. Basically, I'm going to put the whole thing together. It'll all be done. And then just unbolt everything and send it to paint. That's the goal. The fender still has to be taken off, and the rivets cut out of it, and the brackets welded to the fender and then refitted, and that's how that's got to go. But it's going to sit in the same identical spot, so that's no big deal. Alrighty, I'll be back. And we're back. Okay, just a quick recap. So you had to figure a few things out here with the fender. I'll explain that in a second. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Going to move on. But I want to show you the difference. This is the fender rubbing on the frame, tilted, tire outside, the fender crappy factory thing. And this is what Rooster does. Move the fender out, tires running in the center of the fender. Got rid of the rusty, nasty rivets. By the way, these are hot rivets, so that's bonded to the fender. Oh, another point of interest. thought these were galvanized. These are Lumicoated. They're Lumicoat dip process. So it was kind of a big deal in the 60s and 70s. The difference. That's the Lumicoat. That's galvanized. You can see the difference in the material. So, now that, see how galvanized looks? Okay, I'm sure everybody knows that, so I'm not going to spend time on that. But, also, welded the brackets inside the fender and got a space on the fender now, so it's an adequate space of 1/8 of an inch, so it will not rub. And the bolt heads, you'd have to crush this trailer down about 4 inches before it would rub the tire. So I may do something different there, but there's no washers on it. The only thing I have left to do, which I'll show you guys when I do this, is these spacers. They need to go in these tubes. They need to get put in there and welded, and I'll show you how that's going to go shortly. So I just wanted to follow up, fingers in the camera again, follow up on nice stuff, ick. So, and now that I got kind of a rhythm for how this is all going to go together, the other side should go together a little quicker. But like I mentioned in the last video piece, drilling through this frame is a real pain in the ass because it's super hard steel. I got really good drill bits, but it challenges my drill. Actually, maybe not the drill as much as it challenges the old guy driving it. So, got step pad also is located approximately 1/4 of an inch out further than the fender, so there's no chance of boat hitting it, and you should be able to step on this with 1 foot, throw your leg over the boat and climb in the boat from the trailer position with never touching the fender. Now, these are going to need some extensive body work because of cutting that thing out of there, and the way they were hot riveted, it put a warp in it to begin with, and then when I ground it out, so they will get filled in body work to be perfect. I hate doing that, but I'm secure that this will be fine. I'll be back.